Genesis chapter 41, verse 1. After 2 whole years, Pharaoh dreamed that he was standing by the Nile. And behold, there came up out of the Nile 7 cows, attractive and plump, and they fed in the reed grass. And behold, 7 other cows, ugly and thin, came up out of the Nile after them, and stood by the other cows on the bank of the Nile. And the ugly, thin cows ate up the 7 attractive, plump cows, and Pharaoh awoke. So the previous chapter ended with Joseph being forgotten by the cupbearer for his own convenience, not Joseph's convenience, for the convenience of the cupbearer, as I explained already. You can go and rewatch that video and you'll hopefully understand what was the psychology and the reason for why this guy forgot about Joseph. So 2 years later, Pharaoh is having a dream, right? And in this dream he sees this 7 cows, fat cows, 7 fat cows, and they're standing and eating, and then here comes the 7 thin ones, and they devour the fat ones, and it's as if they never ate anything. And Pharaoh woke up. Okay, so yes, we will see later on what the dream means. If you've gone to Sunday school, you'll most likely know what it is. Or church, people explain to you most likely the meaning. So we again know the meaning of the dream by now. But Pharaoh would not have. And now here we have 7 and 7. Remember in the previous there were 3 and here's 7. Okay, well we know as well 3, 7, that's numbers God kind of love. Perfection, right? But in the first case, the 3 meant days. Does the 7 cows here mean 7 days? Okay, so just to get as well back to that point I made earlier, that we know it was 3 days and we know it's 7 years here. So we think that's logical. But see, there's 3 means days. Here 7 means years, right? So it does not always, the 3 does not always symbolize as weeks or days or years. Okay, it can symbolize something different. So you need someone, God, to tell you what it means. Okay, as God is going to do then here for, again through Joseph, for Pharaoh. Verse 5. And he fell asleep and dreamed a second time. And behold, 7 years of grain, plump and good, were growing on one stalk. And behold, after them sprouted 7 ears, thin and blighted by the east wind. And the thin ears swallowed up the 7 plump, full ears. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. Twice, right? In the New Testament, Jesus, when he said something very important, he would say, verily, verily, right? Twice he would repeat, verily, not just, I tell you, verily, verily, I tell you, right? So, 2 times the same kind of dream. Different dream, but the same kind of dream. Okay, 7, 7. Fat, narrow, big, small, lean, plump. Okay, and eating off. So it's the same kind of dream. And the fact that it's twice, so in other words, in one night, this is clearly telling Pharaoh that this is going to happen. This is a very important dream. This is not just another dream. This is important. Okay. So what is the meaning of it? Again, I said we know from Sunday school, most likely, and church knows what. The east wind. I was always like thinking in some countries, depending on, but where I grew up as well, the east wind, man, when the east wind blow. In the summer, it's 50 degrees Celsius outside. At least we thought it's 50. I don't know. They normally will say, no, it's not 50, whatever. But our thermometers in the shade kind of showed that, but whatever. It is hot, but it's livable. But man, when that the wind from the east blew, oh, you had no strength. You were like your tongue like a dog, your tongue hanging out. You just wanted to die. It's just so unbearable. Okay, so a little bit kind of seemingly they had the east wind coming up and then blowing through and well, destroying in this case now, and so they were like really blighted by the wind in this case. Okay, so Pharaoh woke up, behold, it was a dream, and like I already explained, since he saw it twice, same kind of dream, he knew this is an important dream. Verse 8. So in the morning his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt and all the wise men. Pharaoh told him his dreams, but there was none who could interpret them to Pharaoh. So next morning, I mean, a couple of hours later, he most likely couldn't sleep again. He had this dream. He knew this meant something. He didn't understand the meaning of it. So he could not wait for people to be, I don't know. I mean, couldn't he, he's Pharaoh after all. Couldn't he have the people wake up and brought there, whatever, nighttime? We don't know exactly what time he woke up, what time he saw these dreams. So we don't know what happened after in between. So to now kind of speculate, it's kind of interesting maybe to think about it and to speculate and think why did he wait? Why didn't he immediately send his soldiers to go and bring all the magicians and the wise men? But anyhow, even if they went out immediately, it will take, when not everyone would have maybe lived next or in the palace or next to the palace. Some would have been maybe a bit further off. So it would take time to gather all of them. And he wanted all of them together so that to tell them all and to see out of this who can come up with the interpretation for this dream. So maybe that is the reason why it happened only like a little bit later, not immediately waking up, sending his soldiers. Maybe he woke up immediately, sent his soldiers out immediately, but it would take some time for them to collect everyone and come back. Okay, so he told everyone, all the magicians and the wise men. So there are two different groups here. There are the magicians, there are the wise men. So you can sort of kind of think of like theologians and the scientists in today's kind of terms. Although the theologians will say scientists know nothing, and the scientists will say theologians are just a bunch of fools. But if you are a true scientist, you will say theologians do know something, and if you're a true theologian, you will say the scientists do know something, because science and theology, they don't contradict each other. Although there are scientists who say this and theologians who say this. That's not true, right? God is the creator of everything. God created theology because it's the knowledge of God. God created science, so that is as well God's creation. So there's not going to be a contradiction between them. The seeming contradiction is not because God created the contradiction, but because of our sin, and we can create this contradiction. But let's get back to the text. So no one could interpret this. No one could interpret these dreams, because it's already mentioned in the introduction as well, and I'll just quickly remind you of the fact, and he saw these dreams twice, so it is an important thing. It's really important, and these guys understood that this is really important. So to just suck something out of their thumb, this is a saying we have in Afrikaans, you might say like a baby kind of idea, is to come up with just something. You know? I mean, I can, like I said, we all can come up with things. Right? If you use a little bit of psychology and whatever, you can play. They could have played Pharaoh, but since they understood twice this dream, this is important. They could not just make a joke of it. They couldn't just, on the spur of the moment, come up with something, except if they 100% sure knew what it was. They were not going to make that kind of mistake, because they didn't want to end up in prison like the cupbearer and the baker, and I'm pretty sure lots of other people through the years.